Good morning, everyone. I have the pleasure this morning to introduce our two presenters, Suzanne Baker and Leslie Hamrick, who will present on building an inclusive musical environment for unique learners. Suzanne Baker is the founder and director of DePaul University's Community Music Division, now serving 650 students with a professional faculty of 70 teachers. She is also an adjunct faculty member in the School of Music, where she teaches piano pedagogy and coordinates the group piano program. Dr. Baker has extensive experience teaching both individual and group piano and is a certified Suzuki piano teacher. She holds a Doctor of Music in Piano Performance and Pedagogy from Northwestern University, a Master's in Piano Performance from American University, a Master's of Arts in Education and Music from the University of Wisconsin, and a bachelor's degree in mathematics from Bucknell University. The latter one I didn't know, actually. She has received a Staff Quality Service Award from DePaul University and a National Guild Milestone Certificate of Appreciation for long-standing exceptional service to the community arts education field. Leslie has a bachelor's degree in cello performance from the Northern Illinois University. She also studied Braille music reading and writing with Richard Tesh at Southern California Conservatory of Music. Leslie currently teaches Suzuki and traditional cello and Braille music at her private home studio. By teaching other blind students like herself Braille music, Leslie feels like she's giving something back by providing them with necessary skills to be on equal footing with other sighted musicians. She has been a member of the Elmhurst Symphony since 2017. Previously, she participated in the CYSO. In 1996, she won the Panasonic Young Soloist Award from Very Special Arts, resulting in a performance at the Kennedy Center. A year later, she won the concerto competition of the Northern Illinois University, resulting in a performance of the Cello concerto with the University Philharmonic. Leslie attended both Aspen Festival and the Meadowmount School of Music and currently serves as Vice President at the National Federation of the Blind of Illinois and as a board member of the NFB Performing Arts Division. And Suzanne and Leslie will share today a joint presentation about their experiences working with students who are unique learners, often referred to as special needs students. They will share stories, discuss challenges, and offer strategies for setting these students up for success in their musical studies. As our presentations this year, this will be recorded. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, or if you don't want to be in the video, you can hold them until the end of the presentation, and when I turn the recording off, you are welcome to post your questions. Let's welcome Suzanne Baker.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Hello. So I look forward to speaking with you today about my experiences with students who learn in different ways. Leslie and I thought it would be productive to refer to these students as unique learners, even though they're often thought of as special learners, but I think unique learners is more positive. And it's really true that each of us is a unique learner. I mean, all of us, so never forget this. Now, I'm not a trained specialist, and I'll be providing insights from research into my own research and my own observations, but I think it's important to communicate about these unique learners in order to better serve our students. Some of you might be more expert than I am. I know I found out in my pedagogy classes that students shared that they had attention deficit disorder and were able to tell us. And I mean, they're more experts than I am because they experience it. So I think it's interesting that people have many, many talents and insights that we're not sure about. So many years ago, must have been 15 years ago, I was teaching an 8-year-old student who I will call Mimi, and noticed that my patience was being challenged. I was not being nice to that student. Curt tone, less than positive comments. I am sure that's never happened to anyone. The following scenarios had been happening in her lessons. Mimi had trouble focusing. She couldn't focus on any task at hand. She would miss details and not finish something we were working on. Right in the middle of working on a passage, she would look up and point at something else in the room. And I'd say to myself, wait, we're working on this passage. Or she'd suddenly tell me a story about what had happened in school that day. Sometimes she would even just stare off somewhere else, not even conscious that she was in the lesson. That night, after I had not provided a positive lesson experience for Mimi, I began to research characteristics of what I was looking at. And I found out for the first time about attention deficit disorder, ADD. I just really didn't even know about it. But it was so uncanny how Mimi fit in to these three characteristics. So they're often listed as inattentive, but experts who have written a book I'll tell you about call it excessive distractibility. The second is hyperactive, and the authors call it restlessness, which I think is a much better term, and impulsivity. That's just the same. I read those and I went, this is exactly what's happening, and this is why it's, I'm struggling with my patience for this. I found really that night the wonderful text called Driven to Distraction by Hallowell and Ratty. Some of you may know that. It's still a classic today. And I devoured this book. And it's interesting, when you read a book about ADD, you suddenly go, oh, I think I have friends who have these characteristics. Then you think about yourself and you go, oh man, maybe I have this. I don't think I have it, but I'm late a lot and I like to procrastinate. So it's like every time I read it, I go, oh my God, I definitely qualify for those things, but not the other things. This has since been followed by Delivered from Distraction, and it's by the same authors, Hallowell and Ratey, R-A-T-E-Y. I'm going to put I'll share something about these resources in a minute. But it really is a must read, Delivered from Distraction. It's required for my pedagogy class, and I ask all of my faculty at DePaul to either read some of Driven to Distraction or Delivered from Distraction. It's just very, very important. So I found out about structure from reading this book, how important structure is for students with ADD. And I immediately applied that to Mimi's lessons. What I'm going to tell you is something that I started then to do with every one of my students. I created a grading system of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest, and brought different colored 5x8 note cards to the lesson. Mimi chose her colors for each grading level, and then we began to apply this to her pieces. For example, when a piece was ready to be polished, I would ask her to play the piece and give an evaluation. She'd give one and I would give one. Then she would write on the piece, write on the card the appropriate color, what some things were that she needed to improve on. Let's say she had picked yellow for a 4. So she got her yellow card, which we knew was a 4, and she would write those points on the back. And then we'd say, let's go for a green card next week, which is a 5. As soon as Mimi began to get focused and knew that there would be structure in the lesson, she started looking forward to this in her lessons. I started looking forward to the lessons because I knew my patients would not be challenged so much. We had something we could concentrate on. And yes, some of the inattentiveness and impulsiveness was still present, but when using different strategies enabled she and I to have productive lessons from then on. And I want to report that I never indicated this to her parent, because as teachers, we can diagnose to ourselves, but we never can say what we think. We're not specialists. I just changed my teaching strategies. About a half a year later, her mother said she needed to talk with me about something important. I said, sure, of course. And she told me Mimi had been diagnosed with ADD. My face was blank, and I thanked her for letting me know, and that I would just continue the strategies that seemed to be working. So as you know, music teachers are often the very first to be aware of ADD characteristics in students because we see it. You might not label it that, but you see the characteristics. Holloway and Ratty suggest that ADD is somewhat of a misleading name. Yes, it's a collection of systems, but for some people, and I quote, they say, ADD is not a disorder, but a trait. It's a way of being in the world. It's just who the person is. Now, in addition to the core traits of distractibility, impulsiveness, and restlessness, there are also so many positive characteristics of ADD students: creativity, original thinking, persistence, and often very, very generous behavior. So I think that often in talking about this, we only think of the negative sides of it, but I love my students with ADD. I could just spend the entire lesson talking with them and having fun, because as you know, it has nothing to do with IQ or abilities. But as I always say to them, we're in a lesson, we got to work. So I continued my research, and I want you to know that if you just go onto the internet, you can find ways to figure out about ADD. And I'm just going to share, if you can let me share, just a sheet of resources if you don't want to like read an entire book, even though the book is wonderful. So let me just share this one page. Let's see, I have it ready to share. Okay, resources for ADD. And I'll just share it for a second here. And then you can see the name of that book. Okay, sorry, here we go. Screen share. Okay, so here are the resources if you just want to look for just a minute. There's the Hallowell and Ratty Driven to Distraction, that's 94, and the Driven from Distraction is 2005. So then here are some links, and these are, things the Centers for Disease and Control, WebMD, Attitude Meg, Mayo Clinic. This is a favorite, Kids Health. Kids Health really says some really, really easy stuff that you can quickly read about students with ADD. So I don't know if I can send this around at some point, but I'll just stop sharing just so you can certainly.
Yes, if you could share it later after you're done with your presentation in the chat, that would be wonderful.
Okay. All right, that would be good. Okay. So it is a brain disorder, but it's very negative to think about it as a brain disorder. It's just that people are wired differently. I think that's the best way to think. It can't be prevented or cured, but if you spot it early and have a good treatment plan, education plan, it's the best thing. And denial is the worst. Denial by a teacher, denial by a parent, it is the worst. It's better if a school sees it, tells the parent, and then the parent tells the teacher, and then you're sort of on the same page. But there certainly is a stigma. There's no question about it. So you have to be very, very careful of it just to change your teaching. It's a little bit more in males, and a new research says that males can grow a little bit out of it as they become 12 or 13 years old. And again, a way to think of it is it's a developmental impairment of the brain's self-management system. I like that the best, so that you think of these children as really wonderful, wonderful children. Now, I kept reading about things because I knew that some of my students, it wasn't just ADD. It wasn't just that they couldn't pay attention or they were impulsive. There was something else, and called learning disabilities. And I mean, that term all the time is thrown around, LD. And so here's the definition of a learning disability. And this is from the Oxford Dictionary: a condition giving rise to difficulties in acquiring knowledge and skills to the level expected of those of the same age, especially when not associated with a physical handicap. So again, people with a learning disability, as with ADD, is just a unique learner. And this brings up the problem of comparing, being concerned about comparing with others. It's just not that valuable to do for parents. How come my child isn't where this child is? This is your child, and your child is unique. Here are some famous people who had a learning disability called dyslexia, and it did not slow them down. Leonardo da Vinci, Saint Teresa, Napoleon, Winston Churchill, Carl Jung, Albert Einstein, and Thomas Edison. They all were dyslexic. So don't anybody worry if you got it. Just get assistance so that you can make life easier. I am going to quickly run through. There's so many of them, and I'm going to share my screen again because I got to go quickly, and you may not know of some of these. Okay, so here it comes. Go quickly. And some of you may have some of these. Oh, sorry, I did it again, wrong one. I have a problem in seeing precisely what I'm sharing. Just a sec. Let me go back. I got to find it on my computer. Sorry. I had everything ready, but I got to find exactly. This is the only other thing I'm going to share that I'm going to. Okay. Let's get off this one. I have to take everything away. Oh my God, taking me 2 minutes. Here it is. Okay. Learning disabilities and other disorders. Okay, I should be able to find it now. Okay, let me go. Okay. Okay, can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, now let me get back to where I am. So the first one is dyslexia, and that has to do with reading skills and, you know, difficulty decoding and sounding out words. So I think that's the most important one that you have heard about. People, you know, reverse words and stuff like that. Dysgraphia is when a student has trouble with handwriting, typing, and spelling. That's transcription skills. And you know, sometimes, you know, we've asked a student to write something, they can't do it that well. That's really a learning disability. And then there's dyscalculia, and that is difficulty to understanding numbers and math facts. People have this. So if you explain time signatures and with math facts, don't do it anymore if you have an ADD person. If you have a person with dyscalculia, it doesn't work. Okay, very important are nonverbal learning disabilities. And that is you have difficulty with motor, visual, spatial, or social skills. You just are not able as well to handle stuff, and you struggle with subtle social cues, which some of us don't even worry about. They're all nonverbal cues. Then there is auditory processing disorder. This is literally, you have difficulty understanding speech. And something like, somebody might say, please raise your hand. You might say, please raise your hand. And the student hears, please haze your plan. This happens all the time. Look at the cows over there. Student hears, look at the clown on the chair. I have a student like this, and it took me a long time. He said what he absolutely did not understand what I was saying, especially worse over Zoom, and he really did not hear me correctly. Okay, then language processing disorder. You have difficulty understanding verbally stuff. Then there's difficulty understanding stuff that's presented visually. Now we have that all the time in music. What do our students see on the page? It's not what we see. They just cannot decode something they see visually. There's also a developmental coordination disorder, DCD. That has to do with motor skills. All right, there is spatial dyslexia, which is really not a learning disability, but left-right confusion, directional confusion. And then you all know there's an autism spectrum disorder. I'm not doing that. I'm not a specialist in that, but that is a whole area in and of itself. All right, there are many of these. All right, let me go on because I want to go on with some profiles of my students, and I'm going to do it pretty quickly. Let me get back to my thing, because you will recognize your students in some of the profiles of my own students. And believe me, I'm still working on this. I always need help on patience. I always need help on uh, being conscious of where my students are. And the more I keep reading and the more I work like this, the better I get. Okay, so here is my first student. I'm just going to say first student number one. And I'm not going to say a name. So here are all of the things that present themselves for this student. He can't wait to take his turn in a conversation, interrupts me all the time. He can't keep his materials and his belongings in order. He's always sidetracked. When he walks into the lesson, he starts playing before we even get started. I always want to put the lid down because I just go, let's do something, let's take a bow. He cannot wait for an instruction to stop playing. He always wants to, just keep going. Even when I'm saying, let's stop, he doesn't want to stop. He often can't remember what comes next in the music when playing by memory. He repeats sections over and over, no strategy. He has difficulty starting at different places in the music. Has a lot of difficulty playing by memory. And what's difficult is he can be defiant and defensive. These are all ADD characteristics. So here's an example. Be playing a 4-octave scale. Oh, by the way, very musical. Playing 49-2, loves music, very musical. And I'll say, very nice, let's play it again. And this child will suddenly play an arpeggio or play a different scale. Just completely forgets what we're doing. Okay, it took me a while to be really very nice and kind about this, and just to say to that student, tell me what you're thinking about now. Let's do this, without making him feel bad. I also understood that this student has language and auditory processing issues. This student speaks 3 languages. So there are many, many things going in. I also discovered that an hour lesson was too long. His mother had required an hour lesson. The minute I moved to 2 30-minute lessons, so much was cleared up. And now I have a better understanding of the student as a unique learner. I look forward to the lessons. I respond in more positive ways, and he has gained his trust in me. Remote lessons were difficult for the student. Student number 2, and that student is 10 years old. Student number 2, 7th grade, also speaks 3 languages at a Beethoven sonatina level. Transfer student. I noticed how much trouble she was having connecting with notes to the keyboard, making careless mistakes, having trouble paying close attention to details. Inaccurate, just can't find her place in the music. And I thought, oh my gosh, she's just not being careful. And then I realized that she does not see what I am seeing. I would point to it and I would say to her, what do you see? And it was not what I saw. And as soon as I would say, okay, I would point and say, let's figure it out where we are. And she'd finally say, wow, now I see it. And I'd say, well, what did it look like before? She said, well, it kind of looked like it was way over there, and then it wasn't on a space and it's on a line. So that's a perfect example of not being able to process visually what I was seeing. I have a wonderful time. I love the student. Student number 3 is 14 years old. He loves to sing. He's a movie nerd. In his Disney reading book, he can tell me the plot of every movie. And not only that, he can sing the parts. All right, this student loses his place in the music, on his place on the keyboard, and he has a severe motor coordination problem. Not only with hands together, with hands separate. He struggles to play a simple cadence. It must be repeated over and over. Literally, I'm telling you, for months. This is a bright child, to feel the shape of chords. We're doing a transposition activity. He really likes it, even though we prepare each key carefully. He plays the melody, then he practices the chords, and then he plays it together. We do 1 key a week. Maybe we do that key for 3 weeks. He actually doesn't mind because he is successful. So with this students, I take things in super, super small sections, don't push, and try to master, because I try not to lower my expectations. Okay, I got 2 more students. I'm going to go a few minutes over because we start at 5 after. Student 4, the mom, 11 years old, the mom is a musician, so supportive, actually does work in this area that I'm talking about. This student depended on mom for a long time to talk for him, resisted figuring out any answers for himself. You know, Suzuki students, their parents are always there, but he's very cooperative. So here's what happens during a lesson. Never knows where to start, loses his place on the keyboard. I call it spatial disorientation. He's unable to pay attention, but there's something special about that. He doesn't seem to listen when I speak directly to him. I'm actually looking at him, but his mind is elsewhere, even when there is no obvious distraction. It takes some mental effort for him to concentrate. He quickly loses his focus. He's another one. Starts playing before the lesson has even started. But as he became older, Mom and I decided he needs to come to the lesson himself. And with maturity, he is not as hesitant to begin thinking for himself. He actually likes it very, very much. And I think the two of us enjoy the lesson so much more. So words that we can use for students are neurodiverse and neurotypical. So in my studio of 20 students, I only have 2 neurotypical students, 2 out of 20. That's it. For those students, I can ask open-ended and closed questions right off the bat, and they answer them. And I do what I've learned from Francis Clark. I try not to talk too much. I use demonstration. I always ask questions. But for the students that I'm talking about with you, I find that that doesn't work so well. I think it's much better that I completely go over the concept with one of these students. I repeat, I demonstrate, I said the question, I actually give the answer to make them feel good. Oh, that's okay. And I don't ask them questions until I know it's going to be successful. And it's always worth the time that it has taken for me to do that. Then I ask the question and then they answer it exactly. And let's see, before I wrap up, I'm still doing good. Yes, oh, this is an important student, grade 6. Student loves music, also plays the violin. Sports is very, very important. He has difficulty with motor coordination, hands together, all of that. In the beginning, when I taught him, he couldn't sit up. He was laying on that piano bench. I don't know if you people do that. Laying on the piano bench. Yeah, getting off, etc. This is one case where the mom finally told me, after 2 years of teaching, that this student had a developmental delay in many areas. I mean, I saw it, but I didn't know, truly that it was a developmental delay, and he'd been going to the Erickson Institute. So it's improved with age. We have a great time together. I ask him questions. He tells me what is working best for him. And again, what I feel good about is a person who is so impatient, and with students like this, that I'm gaining their trust, and I'm just learning over and over again. My last thing is about I teach group classes, and I have many children with ADD and learning disabilities in my group classes. Student number 1 will blurt out an answer right in the group without anything. He'll climb on the chairs in the room, so distracted. Student number 2, he can't sit still. He can't wait for his turn. Student number 3, it's as if he's driven by a motor. He cannot sit still. He's just going all the time. Number 4, never listens when I speak directly. Number 5, really can't write very well. So, and a student number 6 blurts out all the answers. So, in wrapping up, here is what I would like to tell you. The piano studio must be a safe space. Every student must be valued. Condescending remarks and guilt-laden comments about behavior or practicing do not contribute to a feeling of wanting to return to the next lesson. Structure, routine, awareness, and understanding of individual challenges, and kindness are the best strategies for unique learners. I'm done.
Thank you.
11:33. Okay.
Thank you, Suzanne. And please don't feel rushed. We started a little later, and we have also a couple of minutes you can go over. Whoever has to leave later, at noon has to leave, but we are recording this and it will be
All right.
available online. Thank you so much. Leslie,
Yes.
I give it over to you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Leslie Hamrick, and I actually serve as Vice President of the National Federation of the Blind of Illinois at Large chapter. So, and I'm a member of the Performing Arts Division and on the board. Yumi gave a very wonderful introduction. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is teaching students who are blind or who have low vision. Blindness can come in many forms, from having a lot of sight but not being able to drive a car, to those of us like myself who are totally blind and have no vision at all. So when teaching blind or visually impaired students, a lot comes to mind. You know, you get the news that you're going to have a blind or low vision student in your studio, and really the typical answer is, now what? What do I do? And I think part of the reasons for that is societal expectations. And what I mean by that is blind and low vision people and people with disabilities in general are portrayed in the movies as superhuman or super helpless. And there's no in between. So, yeah, you know what? I may have to ask that the only problem with the chat is it's interrupting my screen reader, and my screen reader keeps talking. Do you think, is there another way to write down questions and then hold them till the end?
Yes, you announced it. We didn't know. They were comments on Suzanne's presentation, but if we ask to please refrain with your comments until the end because it interferes with Leslie's screen reader, I think then we should be fine.
Yeah, it's talking to me. So thank you so much for understanding. So anyway, low expectations from society, and keep in mind that it's nobody's fault that people might have these fears, or what do I do? How do I work with this student? I think the important thing is, yes, you experience the fear of the unknown, but then, like Suzanne was talking about, you're willing to do your research. And I have provided a resource list, which will go to everybody who is in attendance at the presentation, with resources, music resources for blind and low vision students that you can reach out to and get a ton of information. So, being blind myself, I try to think of, for all students, what are they trying to teach me? How can I become a better teacher from this experience? And that applies to everybody. That applies to just have your fear moment and then go do your research. And what was I going to say? Yeah, being blind myself, I can offer an interesting perspective and tell you, I teach and I use a lot of tactile methods and a lot of sound methods. So I can tell with the cello, I can tell if a student's bow is straight because the tone is nice and full. And I can tell if the bow is angled because the tone is half there, or it might be going in and out. I like to think of it as, I say something like, oh, your cello sounds like it has a cold. Let's make it feel better. So what about you're trying to get a cello student to do an accent mark? You have to swing the right arm and open the elbow. I had a teacher that said, pretend you're throwing a ball. Verbal descriptions work really well if the student can follow them. They can be used online. In fact, I have experienced that myself. I had a teacher who said on the piano, pretend you're giving the keyboard a massage, and it improved my sound. But if a student needs more hands-on teaching and they're not able to follow those verbal descriptions, then online might not work for them. For me, online works only if, like with a cello student, they have to be really honest with me and telling me what's going on. So if a student is playing flat or passage flat, for example, my guess is that their left elbow is a little too low. So I'll say something like, okay, what's going on? Is your left wing down? And she'll say, yes. I had this student who was really honest with me about that stuff. She was 14. But with someone else, it may not work as well. It just depends on the student. I am exploring the area of using visual interpreting apps there to help me determine what a student is doing visually on the screen. So I can use maybe less touch if I have a student who's uncomfortable with being touched. So right now, Yumi, if you could share your screen, we're going to show a video of me working with, I've talked so much about cello, I'm going to talk about Braille music, and I'm working with a Braille music student in person. And we are going to see how we worked together, and he has the same book I do. And we're both reading across the notes. We do a lot of sight singing and playing the exercise. We use numbers of the scale. So I hope you find this helpful. Take it away, Yumi. I'm not hearing it for some reason.
I don't hear it.
I can't hear it either.
Yeah, I'm not hearing it.
I could.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me start over. Maybe I.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Okay. The problem is that the video disappeared. Hold on a second. I bring it back. Okay, here we go again. Copy.
Is it turned up all the way?
Yeah, I think I missed to click on the share sound. Let's see. Can you hear now?
Which picture are we in?
This is from
Yeah.
signature 3-3.
Not quite. It's actually common time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's 4
So
6.
4-4.
Yeah, 4-4. So 4-6C is common time.
Got
And in print, it looks like a regular capital C.
it. Yeah, you mentioned this last time. I don't know why I forgot.
That's okay. I'm just going over it.
All right. That's that.
Mm-hmm.
Whoops, wrong octave.
that was very nice. It had nice flow, nice energy. The two things that you might want to watch out for is, in terms of tempo, not rushing.
Yeah.
That's why I was clicking my fingers.
Ah.
And then number two, you in the second measure, you had held the half note a beat too long, but you didn't do it in subsequent measures where we had the half note and the half rest. So that corrected itself, which is very nice to see that. Okay, let's do numbers.
Numbers. Got it. Should I play it? Should I play it on the keyboard as well?
Let's try it without the keyboard. Let's see how you do. You could use both hands to read for this if you want.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Which is pretty cool.
Okay, even though it won't help me, I'm just gonna take off my fogging glasses because they're mine.
Oh, okay.
Okay. 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Off.
4, 5, 4, 3, 4, 5, 2. 1, 3, 2, 4. 3, 5, 4, 6. 5, 1, 4, 7, 3, 4, 5, 2.
Good.
1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Off.
4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 4, 5, 4, 3, 4, 5, 2. 1, 3, 2, 4. 3, 5, 4, 6. 5, 1, 4, 7, 3, 4, 5, 2. 5, 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. Off.
Good. Nice. Let's do letters.
So cool.
Okay. Awesome. So I do letters and solfege with the same exercise. So we go over it 4 times and make sure that this particular student and all my Braille music students can read it in multiple ways. So if somebody asks you, can you sing note names? Yeah. Yeah. Can you do solfege? Yeah, I can do it, because it's good to have a student read music using multiple methods. So I want to talk a little bit about if you have a student with Braille who uses Braille music, it's really important to know where to find the music or where to get it transcribed. And National Library Service has a ton of music in Braille that's already transcribed. You can get it in hard copy Braille, or you can get it in downloadable to your electronic note taker. The student can get it downloaded to their note taker if they have one. And it's so important to plan ahead. I cannot stress that enough, because you need the time, whether you are going to transcribe, send the music off to a transcriber and have it transcribed. That could take 2 months. It could take 6 months. It could even take a year. I've had a whole book take a year, because there's a lot involved. There's the transcribing, and then the person has to go through and proof it and go through every single Braille cell and make sure that it matches what the print has. And if you are, however, doing the transcription using the Dancing Dots software, the transcription process goes a lot quicker. And what may have taken 6 months, it could take a few hours or a few days, depending on how well one knows the program. The beauty of the Dancing Dots software is you don't have to know Braille music. You just have to know how to use the 3 programs. There's a program where you could scan the music into the computer, and then you edit the image, and then you convert that to music, and then you open it up in Line, which is a music notation editor, and you make sure everything matches what's on the print, everything's in place. And once everything's in place, then you translate it, you open it up in Goodfield Braille Music Translator, and you translate that it literally does it in seconds. It is so cool. And I'm going to have Yumi now show the video from Dancing Dots about their software, which is also going to talk about Limelighter, which is a product. Limelighter is a product that can help low vision students magnify your music.
Discover, an accessible music technology for the visually impaired, where you can read, create, practice, and perform. The Limelighter allows you to set your preferred zoom level, then choose from a variety of background and note color options. It also includes a wireless pedal board, magnifying music tracks to your eye, so there's no need to find the next line or even turn the page. You can scan, import music XML, or directly enter scores into the Lime Editor software. You can listen through your piece at any tempo, or turn on the automatic scrolling option and play along to a metronome click. The touch features allow you to make notes in your music and navigate quickly to any measure. After the work is done, it's time to perform with confidence, because you know the score. Dancing Dots, where music meets technology for the blind and low vision performers.
Yeah, Dancing Dots is awesome. I actually know the president personally. He's a blind trumpet player. And the reason he started this business is because he had the similar frustrations that I've talked about with where it would take so long to get Braille music transcribed, and he envisioned another way. So he founded Dancing Dots and then helped create Lime and then Goodfield, which wasn't mentioned on the video, but plain and simple, it's the Braille music translator. So what I want to talk about now is alternative techniques that can be used in the studio and the ensemble. So in the studio, obviously, if you're in person, you use touch. Make sure that, I like to make sure that the student's okay with it, because I do have one student who, the student is not blind, but they have ADHD, and they can handle minimal amounts of touch. So I had to come up with a different way to demonstrate the concepts to this student of arm weight into the string, and on the left side, on the left hand, feeling like you're on a trampoline and you have the string coming up into your fingers. And I had to use sound, and in fact, I had to ask him, is your thumb loose? Is your left wing up? Is your bow straight or on an angle? And then he'd tell me, oh, it's straight. Or no, my cello sounded like it had a cold. Definitely verbal descriptions. And there's one thing that a cello teacher of mine did that was really useful to help me determine how big a concert hall was. And when we were at Meadowmount, what she did was she went to the far back of the concert hall and she said, play to me, play to an audience. And I was just blown away. I was thinking, whoa, I got to play all the way back here? Because not being able to see it, how would I know? But being able to hear it, it just clicked for me. Yeah, I got to project all the way out here. when I'm playing in orchestra. Sometimes we have to come in all together as a group. How the heck do I do that? Well, the conductor will simply give me an audible breath. So for example, if the tempo is 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm thinking in my head 1, 2, like that. Or it could be a faster tempo, 1, 2, 1, like that, and the breath is faster. And my stand partner will often give me verbal cues, like, okay, he's getting ready. And if the conductor says, well, we're starting at letter C, he'll say something like A minor or C major. Or he might sing a couple of the notes, and I know exactly where we need to start. Listening is very important, especially if you're playing something like the Blue Danube Waltz and you have all kinds of tempos. You have to be in the moment, listening the whole time. You can't let your mind wander because you have to listen to, let it feel, okay, the tempo's slowing down, tempo's speeding up. Okay, we're at this tempo. So it's a skill, definitely is a skill. I have a funny story about when I was in my high school choir. The conductor said to me, you caught up with everybody else. How did you do that? And being someone who just loves to joke around, I said to him, I watched. And he got a good laugh out of it. Because technically, yes, I did watch. I just do it differently and listen. So when I'm teaching a student, I always try to have the same music that they have in Braille. Whatever they have in print, I have in Braille. Because then it's a lot easier to point out, like what I did with student number 1, who you saw in the video, what the notes are doing, where the rests are. Let's go back. Yes, you did this half note very nice. Because I've tried to teach without Braille music before and it did not work. It was too much guesswork, too much floundering around. The Braille music just puts everything into perspective. So I hope that this is all making sense to everybody so far. We always talk about in the Performing Arts Division of the National Federation of the Blind, changing what it means to be blind one stage at a time. It could even be changing what it means to be blind, or how we work with blind students, low vision students, one teacher at a time. A lot of teachers don't know about Braille music. Is it their fault? No, they just don't know. I would like to see that change. And I would like to see it be as automatic as with sighted musicians, you learn your music. You learn print music. Okay, you're blind, you learn Braille music. Because too many times what happens is, and this happened to me, where I was learning everything by ear, and then as the music got more and more difficult, it was harder and harder to keep track of. Learning by ear is great. It definitely has its place. For example, when I'm listening to a piece for orchestra, I listen to the full recording. That's my equivalent to glancing at the score, because I can hear the whole thing all at once. And when I learn it, then I can put together like, oh, this happened here, or this is why I heard these notes there. So The resources that I sent out, I think, are going to be very helpful. And just know that it can be done with appropriate training and opportunity. And same thing with the students who have ADHD. My student who has ADHD, you cannot get a whole bunch of stuff done in a 30-minute lesson. To reiterate what Suzanne was saying, you have to repeat things. There may be a lot of breaks because the student has to think about how to respond to a question. That's why you don't ask too many questions at once, because it overwhelms them. So what you do instead is say, we're going to do this scale. Now we're going to do our totalizations. And then you might say, how did that sound? How did you feel during your totalization? So, and the most important thing I've learned with this ADHD student is patience. It's not their fault that it takes them forever to think of an answer. It's not, it's just the way that it's just a different way of learning, just like being blind and low vision is a different way of learning. I was also going to mention that if you have a blind or low vision student, and let's say you can't afford to get the Limelighter, you can put the music on an iPad and magnify it that way as well. I had a low vision student, a cellist, who did just that. And I've also seen people in the Elmhurst Symphony use iPads. So I think using iPads for your music is the way of the future, whether you're blind or sighted. So I would like to conclude. How am I doing on time, Yumi?
You have a couple of minutes to wrap up.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I would like to wrap up with a final video of student number 1 and myself. This person learned a jazz piece. Wait, hold on. And I just decided I'll get my cello out and add a little improv to it. This student happens to be a teacher, or this student happens to work with Pat Heineman Vernon. So shout out to Pat for teaching him this piece and for choosing this piece and for all the awesome work that you do with this student. It's the same student I showed on the video. And always keep in mind that you can be creative, you can think out of the box, and you can, with a little creativity, you can teach any student with any challenge or uniqueness of any kind. In the words of Haydn, there was no one near to confuse me, so I was forced to become original. And in the words of Aretha Franklin, be your own artist and always be confident in what you are doing. If you are not going to be confident, you might as well not be doing it. Okay, now on to the video. Oops.
What an amazing video. Let's give Leslie and Suzanne a hand. Thank you so much. And I just want to applaud you, Suzanne and Leslie, just by sharing your experience. You are really opening our eyes and our minds to know how to respond and how to work with these just differently wired students. So thank you so much. I hope I saw many teachers taking notes. So I think it will sync with us. Thank you for sharing your expertise. And we'll see you next month.